With me on the phone today, here to discuss their brand new release, The Second Coming. It came out on Tuesday, and it's Michael Sweet from Stryper. How you doing today, man?
I am doing okay, other than actually having a different voice. I've been a little under the weather, so I sound more like you today.
Oh, okay.
I've got that DJ voice.
Yeah, the little raspy thing going on. And I was listening to The Second Coming this morning, and man, it's 14 classic Stryper tracks that you guys went through and re-recorded them, and 2 brand new songs. What I got to know is what prompted the decision to go back and revisit those 14 classic Stryper tracks?
Well, originally it started out as a project that we were pretty much doing for ourselves and for our publishing company, because we just wanted to re-record the songs and cut out the middleman, being the label that owns the Stryper catalog. And we just wanted to be, the guys that our publishing company could go directly to and get permission to write off or sign off on film or television. Mm-hmm. And that's why we initially set out to do it. We funded it ourselves, started to. And because it started turning out so well, we thought, it would be great to release this to the fans. And we started seeking out a label that had the same vision that we had in terms of doing that, and it wound up being Frontiers. And we signed a deal with Frontiers, and not just a deal for this record, but for 2 other albums as well.
I've heard Def Leppard kind of did a similar thing where they went back and revisited the tracks, and they were kind of doing more like a note-for-note interpretation of the classic songs. Was there any pressure going in, like once you decided to make it a full release, to make it note for note, or do you just kind of want to like have a different interpretation on those tracks?
There was definitely some pressure. I produced the record, so I was the guy that kind of had to crack the whip. And I remember there were times when the guys would politely say, "Hey, can we do this or can we do that?" And I would have to be the guy to say, "No, we can't." I didn't want to venture too far away from the originals. There are little subtle differences. Things like sing-along song instead of a keyboard doing the syncopated dun 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 dun, droning sequenced part. It's a guitar. So we just changed things up here and there, but overall it's really pretty close to the similar vibe of the original arrangements on those old songs. And the reason why we did that is we wanted to stay true to those, because that's what television and movies, film and TV are gonna want. They're gonna want tracks that sound like the originals. And that's what they're going to get when that day comes. And hopefully you're going to hear some of these songs, possibly with vocal, possibly without vocal, because we have mixes of both. You'll be watching a movie someday or a television show, and you might hear one of these tracks.
And what I think is great about it, in listening to it for me, knowing the original recordings and arrangements, is that I listen to it, and the differences are subtle enough that you kind of feel like you're still listening to the original track. Like you can tell it's an updated version, but it still feels just as comfortable as the one you've known for years. And I really like the fact that you guys did it that way. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that was very important to us. And I mean, we would listen to each original version first before we track the parts. So we kept going back and forth when we were tracking First Love or Soldiers or any one of the new songs, the new re-records. We would listen to the original version. We locked into the tempo. We locked into what we played, the parts that we played. You might hear little differences here and there, like maybe the way we bend a note or the way I hold a note or a fill, a drum fill, or what have you. Of course, there's going to be little differences, but we tried to stay true to the originals, and I think we did so about 95, 96, 97%.
The re-recorded versions, they just sound so powerful, too, and it kind of just adds, a new life to them too. Like I was saying before, it doesn't really sound too much different from the original, except there's the modern technology adds a lot of power to it. And
well, absolutely. I mean, some things have changed over the years. I think the biggest thing that's changed is my voice. My voice has a different tone to it. Back in 1985, 6, 7, I had a much higher voice, much higher tone, and I can still sing in that range. But it's just, there's a little bit more depth to my voice. It's a little deeper. It's a little raspier. Obviously, it is much more deeper and raspier today. It's not normally this deep or raspy, but I think that has played a part in the way I interpret the songs now and the way I sing the songs now. And, I hope the fans agree. I mean, I think that's a good thing. I think there were times back in the day where my voice was a little too high. And, it almost bordered on sounding like a woman, And I know that there are some fans out there that's one of the things they liked about the old Stryper sound. But I'm kind of digging the new sound. It's just a little bit more mature sounding, these versions, these re-records. A little bit more mature, a little more depth, a little more, as I put it, for lack of a better term, a little more balls,
Yeah.
So,
and you guys have 30 years of being a band also this year to add to those songs as well. Absolutely,
and with that time, hopefully comes, as I said earlier, maturity. You kind of lock into the groove, and you tighten everything up, and as they say, you could play those songs in your sleep. We can play these songs in our sleep, literally, and these are the fan favorites. That's why we chose these songs.
Mm-hmm.
They're all the fan favorites and the ones that, for the most part, that we perform live year after year. We left off Honestly, which was our biggest selling and most popular song of all time, because we already re-recorded that not long ago. So we weren't within the legal rights to re-record that again so soon. And we didn't do anything from In God We Trust or Against the Law because we didn't have the time or the funds to do so. So we're kind of looking at that as another project, another re-record, a Second Coming 2 down the road at some point.
In addition to the 14 classics, there's 2 new songs. There's Bleeding from Inside Out and Blackened. And in listening to those, like they don't like stick out as being like not part of the project, but they don't sound like you guys are trying to recreate the sound that you had back then. It sounds like a brand new Stryper kind of thing.
Well, that's a great thing to hear. I mean, and I guess that's hopefully one of the most important points, and that is as a writer. I mean, I've written most of the stuff on from day one. I mean, almost every song on this compilation is material that I've written, and the 2 new tracks as well. And as a writer, I feel that I've grown. And, I listen. I like to listen to all types of music, and I'm not locked into the '80s, just listening to '80s stuff. As a matter of fact, I don't really even listen to '80s music, but I do listen to new stuff that comes out, and I think that helps me as a writer to kind of stretch the boundaries a little bit. And these 2 new songs, Bleeding, Blackened, and then if you go back to the covering and listen to God. You're still going to hear the Stryper flavors. You're going to hear those things that made Stryper popular, big vocal harmonies, harmony guitars, high screams, all that stuff. But at the same time, you're going to hear a little bit of a modern twist to it, and hopefully it fits in with what's going on today. I mean, we're never going to be a modern band. We're not trying to be a modern band, but yet at the same time, as a band that comes from 85, 86, 87, 88, and you're still going in 2013, you want to be relevant. You want to kind of fit in so that not only the old fans listen, but you might gain some new fans along the way.
I kind of imagine taking the guys that you recorded the songs with, the entire band that you were with back in the 80s, and bringing them back in and going, let's redo all these songs. Is it kind of like a surreal deja vu feel, or is it a nostalgia feel in the studio when you guys do that?
I think it's both. It's definitely both, and it's a work under pressure kind of feel too, because you are trying to subconsciously and consciously, you're trying to perform those parts as they were. And 30 years later, okay, this is a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Like, for example, the scream on Surrender. As a vocalist, or the scream at the end of the way, or To Hell with the Devil. When you're singing those 30 years later, and you're going, okay, this isn't as easy as it was 30 years ago. It makes it adds a little bit more pressure, because you start thinking, oh wow, it doesn't quite sound the same. It's a little different. I hope that's okay, because fans want to hear it as it was. So that pressure starts kicking in, and that's not always a good thing. Usually it is. It's a good thing. It makes you want to work harder and try harder and strive for perfection, but sometimes it's a bad thing because sometimes it's such an intense pressure that it winds up hindering you, and you begin to spin your wheels.
One of the stories I've heard, though, is like when Kiss reunited in '96, that when Ace Frehley and Peter Criss came back in, Paul and Gene had played the songs for so long, and they'd grown for so many years, that they actually had to go back and re-listen to the original recordings and relearn that. And that was like, these guys that had been out of the band for, at that point in time, 15 years, they're kind of going, wait a minute, like they recognized it, but Paul and Gene didn't because they were there for the growth.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Well, I mean, some bands wind up, as they go year after year performing the songs, changing them up so much. You do different vocal runs, and you throw in different guitar parts and different bass lines and sometimes different tempos or what have you. And then you go back and listen to the original and you realize, man, we're not doing this the same at all.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened with them. Maybe they wound up changing them up so much they didn't even realize it till they went back and listened to the original versions.
Yeah. And I guess with like being like the songwriter producer of all the tracks on this project, I'm pretty sure like for you it's kind of like seeing your children grow up, I guess, right?
Absolutely, man. And I've been, I don't know if people know this or not, but I've been producing the band for quite a while. I produced the Reborn record, produced the Murder by Pride record, the Covering, and produced this one. But it's a lot more close to my heart, as a producer. And, there's been a lot of good comments, a lot of real positive feedback in terms of the production and how the record sounds. And I've gotten some negative comments, too, like, they need to get a real producer and this and that. Mm-hmm. And, the funny thing is about that is I just got to kind of laugh because we've gone down the real producer route. And, at times it got us something, and it brought something to the table that was incredible, such as like Soldiers Under Command, working with Michael Wagner. It was amazing. He's a legendary producer, obviously. Working with Tom Wehrman on Against the Law, another legendary producer. But there were times over the years with Stryper and with solo projects and with other projects that I was working on where you're just kind of sitting there thinking, this producer is a waste. This is a waste of money because you wind up giving away 4, 5, 6 points to the producer, a huge advance usually, and you're just thinking, why did I do this, or why did we do this? When we know what we want, and we're really, for the most part, producing this record on our own, because the producer is there, he sticks his head in 1 hour out of 8 hours. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he's, in the lounge or gone. And, that happens a lot. And it winds up being the band or the engineer that produces the record. And it's not a slam against producers at all. There are some amazing producers out there, real deal producers, but there aren't many, man. There are, especially back in those times, there were a lot of producers that just kind of lived off of the land. And I got kind of tired of that. And I said, all right, forget this, screw this. We're going to do this on our own. And that's when I started producing the records. And as long as you have a really great engineer and a great studio and good ears, you're good. You're fine.
And with the project being released on Tuesday, as with any other project, you guys are hitting the road this year. What do you guys have planned as far as tour dates?
We've got less planned this year for touring than we normally do because we're working on another record. We start on in just a few days, and we're going to be working on that until June 1st. We'll turn that in June 1st. That'll come out this year as well. And then we're going to do another record in November. We're going to go down to Nashville, and we're going to record a live rehearsal with a live audience record, DVD, audio and video, and we're going to have live footage and interviews and all that kind of stuff. It'll be really cool. So we've got so much going on. I'm supposed to be doing some touring with TNN, which is the former Dokken guys, George, Jeff, and Mick, and myself. And that should be cool. And then I have a solo record and a book that are supposed to come out this year. So there's a lot going on, So there's probably going to be a little less time for actual touring than normal.
you have a personal website in addition to the Stryper website. What's your personal website where people can get?
It's real super original. It's michaelsweet.com.
And what's like the Stryper stuff? That's
Stryper.com, michaelsweet.com, and the website that I really update on a daily basis is my Twitter account.
Twitter account,
which is twitter.com/Michael H. Sweet. And that's the one. There's a live feed of that on the Stryper site and on the Michael Sweet site. And that's the one that I update like daily, 3 and 4 times a day.
And Stryper as well on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, Stryper as well. That's Stryper Band.
Stryper Band?
Stryper Band and then Michael H. Sweet.
Which actually, like that, the Stryper Band Twitter page is the first one of the first Twitter responses I had when I started my account. Actually,
well, there you go, man. Absolutely.
that's how I know you guys have a Twitter account, because I remember like talking about listening to you guys one night here at the office, and then next thing you know, I have a reply. Hey, follow us on Twitter. We're on Twitter. So this was maybe like 5 years ago, like when Twitter was still brand new. So
yeah,
that's cool.
I know. Now it's everyone and his brother, and I wonder what's going to be next. What's the next Twitter?
Oh, I know. Well, then there, it was. I remember when it was MySpace that was like that. When MySpace was the big thing, and then Facebook, and then now Twitter, and it's who knows what the next thing is going to be.
Yeah, MySpace is pretty much, for the most part, obsolete now. I mean, it's not obsolete, but it's Facebook and Twitter have certainly risen above.
Yeah, and I still check my MySpace, but I don't ever see anything going on other than bands posting things, and that's all I ever see.
Exactly.
It's more so a vehicle to have your music and pictures housed if you're a band.
Yep.
And it works good for that, but I mean, like as far as like daily browsing, I don't ever really go there on a daily basis. It's like once a month.
Absolutely, man.
And so the album, you can get it in stores. You can get it at Amazon.com.
You should be able to get it anywhere you can buy music. And I know, of course, it's available on Amazon, iTunes, anywhere you can download music. But you should be able to purchase a hard copy pretty much anywhere.
And will you be posting the tour dates for TNN on your personal site as well?
Absolutely, yeah, once they're confirmed. Right now there's talk, and it's just talk, initial talk of touring sometime in October.
Very cool. And that's,
so we'll see how that goes. But that should be fun. I'm going to be... I'll have the chance to sing some of the Dawkins songs, and Jeff, I believe, is going to be singing the new TNN songs, and it's going to be a blast.
michaelsweet.com is your website. Stryper.com is the band website. The album in stores Tuesday, Second Coming, 14 classic Stryper tracks and 2 brand new songs as well. Go pick it up. It sounds phenomenal. Michael, thank you for joining us on the phone today.
Thank you for having me, brother. Take care, man.
All right, you too, and get your voice back in shape, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying.
Yeah, if you guys are starting the record here pretty soon, it'll probably be a little bit brutal to record. But yeah, again, the record sounds phenomenal, and once again, thanks for calling up. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, man. Take care, and God bless you.
All right, you too. Thank you.